out. G'day folks, here we are at Circular Quay in Sydney. So you've just booked your flights to Sydney, you've looked at your hotel, and you're wondering, do you need to hire a car?
Ah, that old chestnut. To drive or not to drive? That is the question.
Hold up Shakespeare, before you spill the beans, we're going to take you through Sydney's public transportation system so you can decide what's best for you.
Yes, the answer's not so simple, but by the end of the episode we'll find out, and we're going to learn heaps about Sydney along the way. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah! Let's go!
Sydney, a city with the sprawl of LA and the heart of New York. And just like a kangaroo, it's got lots of hops.
Hops? So you mean stops? Like train stops?
Hiring a car can be essential in cities where the attractions are spaced far apart and public transportation is limited.
Fortunately in Sydney, most of the key attractions are located close to one another, so it's very easy to get around and to see them. You can even walk in a lot of cases. If you don't know by now, most of the attractions are located in Sydney's CBD or Central Business District, and that's also where a lot of the hotels are as well.
Getting around Sydney CBD, you have four main options: trains, buses, ferries and the light rail. And of course, you have the good old option of rideshare services like Uber as well.
And if you're a fan of the alphabet, Sydney's got you covered too. F for ferry, T for trains, B for
bananas,
buses, and L for light rail.
Now let's start with the trains.
You mean like that train? Sydney's train system isn't your typical subway. It's more like a double-decker bus on rails.
And the best part of having double-decker trains, they cater for our peak hours. You almost always get a seat, so you can starfish out. Not that kind of starfish. And always get the room you need.
And for those worried about safety, fear not. Sydney trains are pretty clean, even cleaner than my dad's dad jokes. And in fact, the whole of Sydney's public transport system is very safe.
Speaking of dad jokes, you want to hear a joke?
Yes.
Why are trains never late?
I don't know, why? Tell me.
They always follow their tracks.
Oh boy, let's move on. Nice and clean, but a few funky smells in there.
It's smelling like a bit of a Filipino barbecue, if I'm honest. Sydney's train network is not 100% like the subway or metro systems you find in Paris, London, or New York.
While there are heaps of train stations in Sydney's CBD, most of the network's actually outside the city.
And you can use this to your advantage by travelling places off the beaten track. And how about the cost?
Well, fortunately, Sydney trains are pretty affordable. The fares do vary though between different times of day and distances that you travel, but the most you'll ever pay between two stops within Sydney CBD is $3.79, which is the equivalent to about $2.5 US.
$3.79? That's a lot of coins.
Yeah, no, you don't pay with coins on Sydney's transport system. You can buy what's called an Opal card, which is a tap and go card like what you might see in other public transport systems around the world, but you can also use your credit card or tap your phone, which is really convenient. So tell me, where can Sydney's train network take you?
Well, the good news is that you're never too far from a train station in the CBD. You have major ones such as Town Hall, Wynyard and Central. But they are big stations with multiple exits and entries and trains going in both directions. You'll really need to pay attention to where your train is boarding from and where it is departing. There will be multiple platforms, multiple entry and exit points. This is very convenient, but can often be confusing. So make sure you look at the platform number.
Where am I? And of course, one of your first experiences with the Sydney train network might be travelling from the airport to the city. There's an airport link which takes about 15 minutes. It's actually really convenient. However, it's a little bit more expensive than the usual fare, and you'll pay a premium to access the airport stations.
Sydney's train network also extends beyond the city itself. There are regional lines to the Blue Mountains, Wollongong and the Central Coast. Any of these locations would make an amazing day trip with incredible scenery.
Sydney trains do run to a timetable, but they're fairly frequent. You can show up and go if you're travelling within the Sydney CBD. However, if you're travelling further, you may want to check before you go.
You know, it's kind of weird that riding a train and not being in a suit. Do you think?
I haven't worn a suit since 2019.
Why do they make men wear suits in Sydney?
So these trains are air conditioned usually, but the stations tend to be quite hot. So don't recommend a suit if you're travelling to Sydney.
It's the equivalent of walking into a fan-forced oven when you get into any of the underground stations, much like the Tube in London. Now, if Sydney trains feel too mainstream, the light rail is like its hipster cousin. New, shiny, a little bit slower, but also scenic.
Now, if you want to get from one side of the CBD to the other, make sure you consider Sydney's light rail. It might be for you. It's above ground without all of those complex passageways, and you might see something you want to check out, and it's easy to hop on and off.
While the Sydney light rail network covers some of the same ground that the train network covers, it's a great option for tourists who are looking for a smoother experience of visiting the CBD.
And because it's above ground, you'll always know where you're going. It's really easy to get your bearings.
Let's hop on. Buses are the unsung hero of the city's transport system. They might not be anyone's first choice, but they sure get the job done.
And with apps like Google Maps, you'll never miss a beat, or a bus. And they'll help you get to hard-to-reach places like Bondi Beach.
Buses are a necessary evil for most cities, and Sydney's no different. They provide much-needed transport solutions between the areas that are not serviced by rail.
And while you probably won't spend that much time on buses while you're here in Sydney, don't rule them out because they can be really helpful to get you from point A and point B that aren't serviced well by other forms of public transport. Getting on a bus is as easy as tapping your Opal card, your credit card or your phone. Make sure you remember to tap off.
There's nothing there for you to complicate, we're not aligned. You say you listen, we're guessing that's just another sign.
And now for the crown jewel in Sydney's public transportation system, our ferries. Our ferries are just like a cruise without the buffet.
You can see the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, the cityscapes, all from the comfort of your seat.
And if you're really lucky, you might even see a topless party cruise.
They just give you anxiety. Going away, but it's alright though. Starting to chafe and that'd be painful. Happy flying, wish I'd been able to give you more and keep you stable. I don't trust just anybody. Circle tight just like the money. Plenty ones, they wanna try me. Pull the rope and I've been climbing. Many times I wanna let go. I'm reminded of the get-go. Where I've been, where I should get to. Keep me close, I'll show you real.
Sydney ferries are all about the view. You'll get $1 million ticket and a clear run to locations such as Watsons Bay, Taronga and Manly. The ferry to Manly is regarded by many as a highlight of any Sydney trip, so we highly suggest you put it at the top of your to-do list. Terrible choice for a hat, by the way, on the ferry.
So most fares on Sydney public transport are distance-based, which means you have to tap on, but you also have to tap off because they need to work out how far you've travelled. So all you have to do is take your Opal card, your credit card, or even your phone, and tap off every time you use public transport in Sydney. So what's your favourite part of the ferry?
Usually it's the fact that they tolerate you drinking on the ferry. Little brown paper bags mysteriously appear.
So you're making a joke, but actually, if you catch the ferry from Circular Quay to Manly, you can actually buy alcohol on the ferry.
And once you get to Manly, nothing but pregnant women, as far as the eye can see on the beach.
And British backpackers.
We go back, this is the moment.
Now, public transport isn't your jam. Sydney's got rideshare and taxis galore. Perfect for those fancy nights out or when you're running fashionably late.
Like in most cities, Sydney has seen an explosion of rideshare apps. And while Uber is the king, Didi and Ola are operating in Sydney as well. Unfortunately, international platforms like Lyft aren't available.
And there's no need to default to Uber if you need a car. There's plenty of taxis. They're usually at taxi ranks located throughout the city or at your hotel. And don't be afraid to catch them. You can pay for them with credit cards and other payment services as well. Except this is the only form of public transport where you can't use your Opal card.
Gone, deuces goodbye. I got a world to see. My girl, she wanna see Rome. Caesar make you a believer. Nah, I never ever did it for a throne. That validation comes from giving it back to the people. Now sing this song and it.
Alright, the moment you've all been waiting for. Should you hire a car or not?
Well, to be honest, the answer is probably not. If you're sticking to the CBD and you want to see those key sites and you don't want to venture further afield, you really don't need a car. However, there are actually some really cool places to check out outside of Sydney, maybe about an hour or 2 hours away, and also places further afield off the beaten track within Sydney too. And a car could be really helpful for those situations.
But remember, in Australia, we drive on the left, so no surprises.
And if you are going to hire a car, make sure you check out the cost of parking, because if you're staying in the CBD, you're going to pay quite a bit to park at your hotel. But it might be worth it if you want to check out the Blue Mountains, Hunter Valley, the Royal National Park. There's heaps of places you can go that are really only really accessible with a car.
And how are you going to get drive-through without a car? Or COVID tested? So make sure you get familiar with the places that you're going to visit in Sydney before thinking about booking a car.
So there you have it, Sydney's public transport in a nutshell. There's something for everyone.
So until next time, safe travels and see you in Sydney.
Cheers, mate.